English Library Lecture Series, Special Conversations. I'm Laura Sims, the moderator for the series, and I'm so happy to have Carley Moore with us tonight. We have known each other for a really long time.
Yeah, it's true. Since
at least 10 or 11 years.
Maybe 11, yeah.
So we were in this group together in Brooklyn. We were both poets. It was called Brooklyn Poet Moms, and appropriately. And we would all get together and bring our kids, and it was like chaos. It was wonderful. We critiqued poems somehow.
Yeah, we really did. We got through everyone's poems.
We did. And the kids are all different ages.
Just doing wild things.
It was crazy. So anyway, it's wonderful to have her here. She is a multi-talented writer. She's a fiction writer, essayist, poet, and also an NYU professor. And I loved this latest novel, Panpocalypse, so much. It is about a pansexual woman in the midst, like the thick of the pandemic, riding her bicycle through the city and having adventures and traveling through time at one point, which is super cool, and reflecting on past relationships, joining protests. It's very incredibly ambitious and brilliant, and also a total delight. And Michelle T. has called it, if I can see, a masterpiece of fierce queer honesty, which I agree with 100%. It's wonderful. Unfortunately, she doesn't have any copies of it tonight, but
I've run out. I'm sorry.
But she has other.
I have my other books,
yes.
And it's you can get it in most indie bookstores and online and all the major places.
Right.
Okay. And actually, this month, Feminist Press is having a Pride discount, so you get 30% off of all Feminist Press books this month. So
that's cool. So you
can
could order
it from
straight from them.
Straight from them. You get a discount.
Perfect. So before we talk about the book and before she reads, I'll tell you her official bio, which is very brief. It only begins to cover the range of her talents. No, it's very brief. Carley Moore is the author of the Lambda and Firecracker Award nominated novel, The Not Wives, which I also have here, and she does have copies of. It's awesome. The essay collection, 16 Pills, which is also here. I think all of you would love her essays. And the young adult novel, The Stalker Chronicles, which I also loved. And her second novel for adults, Panpocalypse, is just out from the Feminist Press. You can find her blogging on Medium or follow her on Instagram at Fragmented Sky. Please join me in welcoming Carley Moore.
That's so nice. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for saying all those nice things about me. I feel like I have to interject and be like, I don't know, mess it up. Officially. So I'll read, so I should read a little bit, right? Yeah, I'll read from the beginning. I'm gonna keep track of time.
Okay.
I think I'll read the first three, all the chapters in Panpocalypse are really short. I have this thing about short chapters.
Yes, that's one of my questions.
Okay.
I love the short chapters.
Welcome. So this is the beginning of the book. Robot Dictator. Hi, this is a test. How do you like my voice? This is a work of autofiction. Some things are true, some things are made up. I am currently making this as you are reading it, and because of my various disabilities, I'm dictating it. You think it's going to work. Robot dictation device, robot dictator. If you can learn my voice, if you can fix my mistakes, then we can write this book together. Capitalize, good little robot, good little dog, good little machine. Would you like us to give you a name? What do you want to be called? Capitalize, delete, backspace, backspace, backspace. I don't know what to call you yet, so let's see what happens, little robot. I need you because of my muscles, because the pain in my shoulder and my hips doesn't go away. It's worse during the pandemic, but everything is worse during the pandemic. This is a weekly gift should you need it. I make it for both of us so that we don't go crazy, but honestly, I'm already mentally ill. It's for the community, because now more than ever we must make our own things and take care of ourselves as best we can. Let me know if you think of a name for my dictation robot. Sometimes the robot breaks and can't hear me, and I get fed up and type and hurt my muscles anyway, because that's what we do, we work through pain. So you may experience disjointedness or breaks or spasms in the text and in me. They can't be helped. Kids always used to call me a spaz when they wanted to fuck with me, and I'm reclaiming it. They weren't wrong, they were just assholes. Disjointed time, broken time, nonlinear time, lockdown time, sick time. I aim to fuck with time because mass illness has fucked time, and we're all disabled now. My bike. I buy a bike. A store in the East Village is open for essential workers of the pandemic, delivery people on bikes, mostly immigrants, often undocumented. In line with me, there's a man with a broken bike chain and two friends with a bike that needs new brakes. A couple of homeless men wander by. What are you waiting for? Bike shop, we mumble through our masks. There's a light drizzle. I fold and unfold my umbrella. It's a gray day, not a riding day. A man in a motorized wheelchair zips up too close to me so that he can ask if the tobacco store next to the bike shop is closed. I think so, it looks like it, I say through my purple bandana mask with raccoons on it. My friend sent it to me. She's with her wife uptown in the Bronx where they live now. I miss her but can't see her. I can't see any of my friends, and I'm single and clinically depressed, so I cry a lot. I have a few casual lovers, but I can't get to them. I miss touch. Sometimes I feel abandoned by my friends. Friends who made queer germ circles without me, friends who left the city for country houses, friends who are married or coupled. I feel unitless, adrift on the waves of my own tears. The man in the wheelchair speeds away and into the bike lane without replying. I love how fast people in motorized wheelchairs go. How many more I've seen in the street since lockdown, alongside bikes, taking up the middle of the road. I like seeing people in wheelchairs in the middle of 2nd Avenue. It's a glorious fuck you to the walking, a middle finger to the abled city, the not sick city, the whole city is quarantined now. My parents never got me a wheelchair though in those last few years when things were really bad. I would have been better off with one, but maybe I didn't want one. Maybe I was steeped in my own shame and refused one. Inside the bike shop, a man in his late 20s or early 30s helps me. I called ahead to see whether they had a bike for me, and they did. He's kind and sweet and wears a green and yellow mask. I wonder if his partner made it for him. I say, I have a disability, so my balance isn't always great, but I can ride, though it's been a while. I need to be able to touch the ground with my feet when I stop, and I need a cruiser with a wide seat and maybe more than 3 gears. I want baskets for groceries, and a color would be great. I think I have a good bike for you. He's a total professional. Not a bike bro dick. He goes to the back and then wheels out my bike. She's magenta, low, with cream-colored rims on fat tire wheels. It's a step-through, so you can get on and off easily. It's really light, too. We pick out my seat and have an honest conversation about my ass. Maybe our masks make it easier for us to do this. Some of us get very sweaty and some of us don't, he says. It's just about bodies and where your sit bones are located. I get really sweaty and my butt is big. Got it. He shows me the widest, softest seat. I am also thinking about my pussy and what she needs, and that she needs me to take care of her. More than anything, I want to feel good on this bike and I want to connect with her. I need endorphins because the pandemic has made me so depressed I'm afraid I'm going to have another breakdown. We pick out locks, the basket, a helmet. I choose the ventilated one over the cuter, more old school one because I know how sweaty my head and face get. I max out a credit card to buy her. I am a master at maxing out a credit card, paying it down little by little and then maxing it out again in a moment of desperation and or longing. My bike guy seems excited for me. I'll call you. It'll be ready tomorrow. I'm numb when I leave, panicked about the money. I am waiting for my stimulus check, which I've already decided to give away, but there is suffering in the world and I have bought an object. Just going to read one more tiny chapter. First ride. We're almost 2 months into the pandemic. The day I pick up my bike, it's sunny and I'm sweating. At lights I stop. I stick to the bike lanes mostly and just pedal. My leg muscles tingle and my heart beats harder in my chest than it has since the lockdown began. Before I really know what I'm doing, I'm at the mouth of the Williamsburg Bridge. I stare up at the incline. Can I do it? Should I try? I take a picture of it with my phone and text my friend and ex-husband Guapo that I'm going to try. He knows my disability better than anyone, except maybe my mom. Do it, he texts back. The incline is long but steep. I pass walkers and shift gears. When bikes pass me, I'm pulled towards them like I'm on some invisible puppet string. I will have to think about this, but I don't stop. My legs burn and I switch gears, panting but riding, going, gone. What if I never go back to Manhattan? What if I stay in Brooklyn with my friends? What if I find a secret bar where people are allowed to touch? At the crest of the bridge, I wave and talk to the river. Hi, East River. Hi, garbage barge. I love you. I count masks and remember that bikers are queer and cute, at least the ones coming at me from Brooklyn. Black bandana mask, black cutoff jean shorts, rainbow flag mask, mullet and red bandana, black mask, no mask, no mask, no mask. The city bikers have fewer masks, are taller and white, straight men and their tall women. Nothing can touch us, their maskless faces say. Orthodox women and their teenage daughters walking, never riding, maskless. My muscles burn and I get off to rest at a little inlet on the bridge before the decline into Brooklyn. I'm almost to the other side where nothing is open and no one can see me. My heart keeps pounding out of my chest. I'm happy for once. In the last 2 months of depression, anxiety, and worry, I feel joy. There are 2 women on roller skates in the inlet. Their skates are gold and they wear hot pants and crop tops. One says to the other, "Got it, go," and starts to film her. The starlet waggles her tongue at the camera and shoots the duck, pumping her leg to keep herself moving. I smile at them through my mask, but they can't see. I keep forgetting that no one can see my mouth and nose. No one can see my expressions. I have walked this city for 25 years, full of expressions. I have smiled, frowned, laughed, and yelled, and now I am faceless. You are so pretty, I want to shout at them, but I don't because I don't want to bother them and I don't remember how to speak in public. I keep riding down the slope of the bridge into Brooklyn. When I get home a few hours later, I look at the queer, sad, desperate, lonely dating app, Lex. This isn't an insult, it's just how it is for single queers right now, or maybe since the beginning of queers, longing all around. A new post, an unlinked to anybody account, no pics. Are you lonely? Do you want to fuck and be fucked? Do you want to touch each other underground like they did in Paris at Monocle in the 1930s? Shh, it's against the law. I type a quick message into the ether. Yes, but how? In the morning when I check my phone, the ad is gone, but there's a message. We'll find you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I love how, I've forgotten how quickly the speculative element comes in there. That's really cool. Thank you, Carley. Can you talk a little bit about how the novel came to be, because it has a very unusual birth story with the Feminist Press?
Yeah, so I think I started writing it in April of 2020, so we had been locked down for a little over a month, and I was living in a dorm. I had a faculty apartment in a dorm at NYU, and my apartment at that point opened up onto a dorm room floor, and suddenly all the students were gone, so it's just basically me and my daughter and our cat and one other adult in this huge building, and it was super eerie and strange, and a lot of people also had left Lower Manhattan, and I thought, well, my first thought was I have to get a bike, I have to get a bike so that I can see people, or go to Brooklyn, or just exist, or just have movement. Yeah. So I got the bike, and I think I started writing that little beginning kind of around the same time, and then I had just a weird idea to pitch to Feminist Press. I was like, well, what if we what if I serialize a novel as this is a bit there's a bit of a narcissist, well, all writers are a little bit narcissistic, but I was like, people will need something, and they will need it from me.
That's right.
I want to give people this gift of my book. So graduate school, I just had loved the Charles Dickens serialized idea and just like the whole like installment plan of a novel.
Yeah.
And I also thought it would help me write a second novel, because the truth is I had about 6 or 7 second books that were anywhere from like 10 pages to 170 that were just dying. Like they would all just die.
Yeah.
So I wrote to Feminist Press, who published The Not Wives, and it was just a very quick like, hey, this is a wild idea, here's like 5 pages. I sent them 10 pages, and I was like, what do you think? And they said yes, which was really sweet. But they were smart too. They said, we'll serialize the first half over the summer, and then we'll it'll be a whole book in, what is it, 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty quick turnaround.
So they were, they really liked the idea of it being free, and so that's
really
how
cool.
it happened. And I had, by the time we started doing the chapters in July, I had like almost the first half. So I wasn't like writing. I had this fantasy of myself like writing like on a super tight deadline. It's just not true. But and then the whole second half I just did after I did it like in the fall. It was due in January of 2021, so I did the second half in the fall.
And did it change substantially from like the serialized versions? Did you do a lot of reshaping? I just imagine like it's different experiencing a book in pieces and then like as a whole.
Yeah, we didn't do a ton of, I don't think we did a ton of changes, but we definitely had to go back, and we also had to rethink a lot of not rethink, but a lot of the book sort of dovetails into protests against the murder of George Floyd, and the character starts to participate, in that summer of so much protesting as so many people were doing. So, we kind of needed to not rethink, but we just needed to pay attention to what I was writing about at that moment and what had changed.
Yeah.
Which, in some ways was not as much as maybe I had hoped for in terms of that situation.
Right.
And police brutality, but so not a little bit of reshaping, but not a ton.
Okay.
I had to lay in, once I figured out there's time travel in the third section, which was not something I planned at all, and I don't know how to write, never have written time travel, so I was just like,
very well.
I'll just try this weird thing.
So that was your idea too.
Yeah. I mean, once I had the Monocle stuff.
Yeah, you had that
I've always
early.
loved that. I know about that because there's these photographs from Versailles, which I've always loved, and I've loved. I love subcultures and underworlds and anything that is supposedly hidden. So I that was in the beginning, but I didn't know I would go back in time.
It's very cool.
Where was it serialized?
It was on the Feminist Press website, and it was also, the other thing I had proposed is that we illustrate it somehow, and briefly I thought that I would be involved in the illustration, so I can't draw at all, so. But they hired this amazing illustrator, her name is Niti Banjari, and so she made illustrations, but it was on the Feminist Press website.
And then did they take it down when the book came out? They left it up?
No, they actually, it's all still there.
Yeah.
And they, part of the initial promotion was just to remind people, if you read it then, now you can finish.
Right, that's cool.
Yeah, that's so
Cool. And the structure of it is also very organized. To me, it was also this is how I can get a novel done, right? I've got, it's written so week by week, and each week has 4 or 5 entries. So it's very structured.
Yeah, I have written a lot of autofiction. I mean, I started in poetry, and then I moved into essays, personal essays, and then it really made sense for me to be an autofiction person, because I like pulling from my life, but then actually making it fictional. That feels really more satisfying to me lately than personal essays, where I'm okay, humiliated myself. With novels, you can just be like, it's not.
It's fiction.
It's fiction. And I was really surprised how people really are like, oh, okay. Like,
Yep.
my joke about when 16 Pills came out and I did publicity for it, everyone would say to me afterward, not everyone, but many people said to me afterwards, are you okay?
It's her book of essays.
But with novels, yeah, people just, you know, they go with things.
Okay, it's fiction. It's
yeah.
fiction. Are there writers of autofiction or works that kind of inspired it, or just people that you like?
Yeah, I think I was, you know, we're both former, or we're poets.
Yeah, poets.
So I loved Michelle T. She was a huge inspiration, although she's not, I don't think she describes herself as a poet, but a really kind of colloquial, kind of diaristic, kind of drawing from life, a very, very messy life. Like that was a huge inspiration for me, like, oh, I can actually have a very messy character on the page. Eileen Miles, I think, is a huge influence too. I have a friend, his name is Richard Scott Larson, and he's been writing about autofiction as like a queer form, which has been really interesting.
That's interesting.
And he, he surmises that because queer history is so fragmented and you know, not traditionally in textbooks and not really readily available, and also so much of it just comes through personal experience that it's often lost, that the autofiction is like a really good form for that, which I like that idea.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That
to
makes
me.
sense.
Yeah, but the structure, yeah, you had asked about the structure,
Okay.
I think was really just, I like a short time frame in a novel because, I mean, I'm always so impressed with novels that are like 5 generations or even a whole lifetime. I'm like, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I don't have that level of skill. So, yeah, I wanted to just keep it
Small scale.
yeah, week by
Deep.
week. Yeah.
You go deep, but it's, yeah, I like that. And it allows you, like, it is so structured that in some ways it gives you the freedom to be really ambitious and kind of loose and like explore all kinds of issues and, you know?
Yeah, I think so. And I also just tried to, because I knew, it was comforting to know that Feminist Press had already said yes to it. Because I haven't had that, I've never sold anything on spec or on a proposal, and I think that sort of initial confidence that they put in me also allowed me to be wilder.
That's good. Because sometimes that can be more pressure too, is like, okay, no,
Yeah, I think I've heard that a lot. That's really
Yeah.
true, that like, especially with a big 5. Is it
Yeah.
4 or 5 now? I forget. 5.
Yeah,
It's back to
one
5.
is eating, another one's
Yeah.
maybe 4.
But I mean, that's also the great thing about Feminist Press is that they do champion marginalized voices, and they really like a stranger book.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was one of my questions actually was, you know, you have worked with a big 5 publisher, indie presses, like what's been your experience, your different experiences?
It's been really varied. I mean, my one big 5 experience was with the Stalker Chronicles, which was my young adult novel, which is the first
Great.
fiction that I ever wrote, first novel that I wrote, and it was with FSG, and it didn't do very well, which is fine. I think it's out of print right now, but I have like 40 copies in my closet if anybody wants one.
It's really good.
It's a funny thing, I didn't realize that like when your book goes out of print or it's gonna get remaindered, the press writes to you and they're like, do you want any? And it's just like, I was like, well, of course.
Gotta
I'll
save them.
take 40, and I have done nothing with them, so. So, I mean, that part feels like maybe that feels a little bit sad, but I actually really I was really honored that it was FSG, and it was the biggest advance I've made, which is not huge, but it paid for like 1 year of part-time Brooklyn nursery school, which was like a big deal.
That's a big deal, I know.
And yeah, I definitely had the experience a lot of, like, I think more indie authors talk about, which is my editor, like, I didn't really have a sense of why she had bought the book. We were kind of like very sort of disconnected, and yeah, I did, and there wasn't a lot of marketing or publicity behind it. So that was my big 5 experience. So I've had really different experiences with indie presses. I mean, 16 Pills is published by like one woman and her mom. Like, that's the tiniest press. It's Tinderbox Editions. So that was just like also no marketing and publicity, but I got to do whatever I want, and I think they make a really beautiful book.
Beautiful.
And
Yeah.
I love this photograph. It's a photographer, Jackie Dives, that I actually worked with on the essay that's called 16 Pills. So yeah, a lot of freedom. And then Feminist Press, I actually feel like, has given me a lot of support and press and publicity. There's not a ton of money because they're not for profit, but I've been really happy with them.
I also wanted to ask, this is total non sequitur, but about the bicycle. And like, I love how biking through the city provides this like momentum for the story, and like it's like the plot. It's really cool device. And I don't know, did you intend to do that, or?
I did realize, I mean, there was a kind of stuckness that you heard in the beginning, and that I was talking about just feeling really stuck, which I think so many people have felt during the pandemic. So there was the recognition of that. And also, plot is always very hard for me, I think, as a poet. I think I'm getting better and better, and that's exciting, but I definitely, when I got the bike gave, like, riding around, I was like, oh, this can, in some ways, like, this can help me have a life that I can write about in some ways. And it will create movement. Like, I think as a person with mostly invisible disabilities, but I was really sick when I was little, and until I was 12, I spent a lot of time not walking, not being able to walk, and I think there is something in me that is just struggles with movement and action, and so the bike was really a good way to create interactions and just literally movement. Like, okay, well, at least they'll go to a different place. They'll go to Brooklyn.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I still have my bike, and her name is Lana, and I love her.
Were you nervous about writing a pandemic novel? It's a very different novel, but
I think I had some moments where I definitely thought, like, I thought we would be out of the pandemic when the book came out. So I thought, like, oh, people might not want to go back. But since we're still sort of indefinitely in pandemic time, I kind of let go of that. I think in general I also just have a kind of I'm just gonna do what I want attitude, which
it's good.
It doesn't always work out, but I just felt like
gonna do it.
I'm just gonna do this.
Good.
And I think I had my students that semester where everything shut down, and they also disappeared, and we all went online, and it was so bizarre. I think the New York Historical Society had put out this call for pandemic stories and oral histories, and so I was also kind of thinking, like, I want to make some kind of a record of, like, the total bizarreness of, especially Lower Manhattan, and I mean, I don't go to Queens in the book, but, you know, Queens and Jackson Heights was that first epicenter, and you know, there were more tents kind of around my neighborhood, and it was just so strange. I really wanted to document it. Like, I didn't want it to be lost. So that was part of my thinking.
Yeah.
Like, even, you know, even if it's a pandemic novel, like, it's important, or maybe it will be useful in the future, something like that.
Yeah. That's And your narrator participates in some of the protests, the BLM protests. What I love about like how you dip into that is you make it a really embodied experience. Like you talk about the pain that you have when you participate in these protests. So it's just a really interesting like perspective that you give us on the protests and on being disabled and
Well,
in the midst
thank you.
of that.
Yeah.
It's like a different perspective on those.
So I've always, I mean, the Not Wives is partially set at Occupy Wall Street, and I've always been I don't want to claim to be like a huge activist, but I've always been a protester, and I used to teach a class. I taught a class for 10 years in my program called Youth in Revolt, which but definitely gave me an insight into protests and how they work, and I always just think it's important, for me at least, it's important to like be in the streets when I can, to like reclaim them and just sort of remind myself like this is a public space and like we're allowed to complain and be angry. But yeah, as I've gotten older, like, and have more physical things going on, it's just, yes. And I think lots of people with disabilities and have written about this, it's just harder to do that kind of in-person protesting.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also a summer of, huge upheaval. I felt really like it was a rarer moment that white people were really like stepping up and recognizing like, okay, we actually need to, stand in solidarity with Black people in this country, and I wanted to chronicle that in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little, I think it's tricky as a white woman, participating and writing about this. Like, I really wanted to be careful not to be voyeuristic or creepy or exploitative or any of those things. But that was another thing I really wanted to report on, especially those first few protests in Lower Manhattan, where I was really watching, the police beat the shit out of really, like, Black and brown kids who are not much older than my daughter. And I just felt like I wanted to be a camera, kind of. And it was very easy for me with my white body to just kind of, the cops didn't really mess with me as they wouldn't for the most part. So I felt like I could be in the way. And I liked the role that bikes ended up playing in a lot of those protests. Like, I think people kind of figured it out, like, okay, the bikes will be in the back and the front, and the cops will be behind the bikes. Like, I felt like I also had like an easy role, like just stay in front of the cop car and be in the way.
Right, so that's very cool. Yeah, you definitely, so you're bringing attention to disabled people, you're like forefronting LGBTQ issues. Why is this important? This is our talk title, so I had to get this in before I open up the question.
This is our special conversation.
Yes, this is why we're here. Why is it important
to
center these issues in contemporary fiction or contemporary writing?
Yeah. Well, it's Pride Month, if you haven't heard.
Yes, it is Pride Month.
So I actually really hate I kind of hate Pride Month. It's just a lot of pressure, and I had an Instagram post a couple days ago that, like, before I went to bed, I had watched like some amazing lesbians like dancing on a table like while doing headstands, and I was just like, I have failed already. Like, I can't, I'm not going to be able to, like, I'm a tired queer person. We're still marginalized in publishing. I think things are shifting, but it's very slow. Publishing is a very white and straight enterprise. And so I think it's really important to tell queer stories, to tell, any marginalized group. I really think, we need as many novels and stories as we can get just to make up for, just because we need them in general, just because so wonderful to be able to read about other people's lives. And, you know, I think there was just like a study out that people who read novels have more empathy.
Oh.
Which was like, I know,
That's
I was
cool.
like, ah, yes.
Yeah.
But just that's like, yeah, just to have empathy for other
Right.
people. And also right now, so many things are under attack. So obviously Roe v. Wade, but all of the anti-trans bills, which are so terrifying and so brutal in their just way of seeing trans people. So this book is also a retelling of Eurydice and the Orpheus and Eurydice myth, and the Eurydice and the character is Orpheus's ex-girlfriend, who she's very much longing for, and she's a trans woman and also a cyclist. And yeah, I just wanted to have as many queer characters in the book that are part of my world or have been as I could. I'm not sure I answered the question.
Yeah. Sure. And this is a perfect place to see if anybody else has questions. I have more, but if anyone
You can ask me anything.
asks for anything.
Well, I'm very interested in the fact that, like, both of you guys are like, well, I'm a poet, but all the books you have up there are like
I know.
nonfiction. And
I
so when does
know.
one?
Prose.
So is poet like a identity more than a? Like, I'm just curious about that.
I have tried so hard to have a poetry book. I spent the first 35 years of my, I started when I was I started writing poetry when I was 16, and my MA is in creative writing and poetry. Like, I didn't go to school for fiction. Like, my whole plan for myself was to just publish poetry books and be a poet. But it didn't work. Like, I couldn't, occasionally I'm like, I really do want to have a poetry book, just because it seems like, I don't deserve one. No one deserves anything. But like, just in terms of, I just think it's so weird that I just failed. But I don't think it's weird that I failed.
But you published poems.
I have a chapbook and I
journals
published in
and-
journals, and I was very much part of poetry
Right.
communities and reading a ton of poetry. I had a poetry reading series.
We
But-
both devoted many years to poetry. Many years.
So it's
But
more like once a poet, always a poet.
I think so.
Yeah.
I feel like I have allegiance to the genre because it also taught me things about, publishing. So I did feel for a while, and I'm not sure if this is true, I don't think it's necessarily true, but I really did feel like in poetry, like, I needed to know the right people, I needed to submit to endless contests, which was always money. And for me, fiction was just a much clearer path. Like, it's like, okay, it's not that it's an easy path, but you can write a book, anyone can try to get an agent, anyone could get an agent, anyone could sell a book, and anyone could potentially make some money. Like, that was also very exciting to me as a single mom, and I have a co-parent, and but yeah, just money was also like, I would like to do, if something's going to be really hard, I would like it to have some potential value in its labor.
Right.
So,
Yes, that is,
Yeah.
what I tired of in poetry. It's like, it's a very small world.
yeah.
It is built on like relationships and stuff, which is cool on the one hand, but on the other hand, it is like more direct, the path to.
Yeah, I wanted to have more readers too, like, I
Yes.
wanted the possibility of having more readers,
More
like,
than,
but I think I hold on to the poet thing because poetry taught me how to write images, it taught me how to make a sentence or a fragment. I'm more of a fragment maker than a sentence maker sometimes, but it taught me that kind of really specific detail that I think you really need for scene making. It did not teach me anything about plot, so that was like the hugest thing. I have many novels in drawers, like I think we all do, or on files, and they were just, for me in the beginning, I thought action was like, this person is sitting in bed and she's thinking.
Sounds right, that sounds right.
I was just like, there's so much happening.
Very true.
People were like, she might need to like go somewhere.
No, she's just in bed thinking.
Maybe another person will interact with her.
Oh God, that's funny.
Oh my God.
Okay, I've thought somebody was piping in music suddenly.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Any other questions?
Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah.
Are you a
I was-
poet? You're a fiction writer.
No, I'm a
No,
fiction
all
writer
fiction,
who
yes.
likes to write poetry, so it's like the opposite.
So you're
you
also
know.
a poet, if you like to write poetry.
No, I definitely am not a poet,
But why
but
do
I
you-
write poetic fiction. I'm
Yeah.
interested in the whole.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I feel like there's a bit of arbitrariness between, dividing the genres so
Well,
stiffly
this
too,
is,
right?
I feel like I got this is this from you? This, like maybe this is from the David.
Markson book?
Yeah, is there stuff about genre and like,
There must be.
I think there's stuff about genre being like an illusion. Or,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think so.
I don't really, I mean, I know we have to be in genres to have books, but I don't
Yeah.
really, I know what you mean, like I feel like there's so
A lot
much
of-
overlap.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap.
I mean, yeah, and then once you get into autofiction, memoir,
Right?
fiction,
Yeah,
creative nonfiction, it's like
Right.
it's
very
the
blurry.
same kind of blurry.
Yeah.
but I am able to, because people ask me a lot, like, how do you distinguish between something being a personal essay and being autofiction? And for me, it is very distinct in that, like, this, I am really trying to get to the truth as close as I can, or my truth, but I also do a lot of fact checking, and I, corroborate scenes with people if I can. I really am aiming to get to fact and truth, although recognizing, my version of things is always going to be different than others. And this is just, I do really let myself go wherever I feel like the book needs to go.
And you can mix and like there's truth
Yeah.
and then there's, time travel.
Yeah.
I have more questions. I was actually gonna ask you about, because I'm often asked that, why did you switch from poetry to prose? And it's a popular question, I think,
Yeah,
for novelists.
why did you switch?
I mean,
Because I think of you, unlike me, I mean, you have quite a few poetry books, and I think you were really successful in that genre.
I just got sick of myself, like of what I could do in poetry.
Yeah.
And I felt like I wanted a new challenge
Yeah.
And I loved fiction, like I was never reading poetry.
I
Or
get that
sometimes I
too.
was, but I was always reading. I would always choose fiction over poetry, and it was kind of like, well, maybe I should try to write this. So it was just, I think it was like just a time for a change.
Yeah. I liked the challenge too.
Yeah,
I felt like I don't know how to do this
like
at all.
a marathon instead of a
And
sprint, all that.
I also like a long project, so I think that suits me.
Yeah,
Like I really feel most content as a writer if I'm in a longer thing.
yeah. And you can work at it a little bit each day. I think
Yeah.
that was part of it actually because I had just had Caleb, and that was when I had started thinking, I had always thought like, I want to write a novel, but never did it. And then when I had Caleb, I was like, I just want something that I can do every day that is continuous, that I can
Yeah.
dip in and out of, right? And that was long form fiction.
Yeah, it's funny actually because when I was pregnant with Malka was when I started writing Stalker Chronicles.
Really? Okay.
And I finished after she was born, and
Yeah.
I also needed that during the naps.
Yeah.
Like I could just needed, like also your brain is so messed up in the
Right,
beginning.
yeah.
Like I just needed to be like, okay. Like, get to go
Exactly.
into this next thing.
Yeah, it's a very different process from making poetry. I was gonna ask you if you have one piece of advice for aspiring writers, what would it be?
I always try not to say cliche things at this
I
moment.
know, it's very hard. But you can if you want.
No, I don't want to. I mean, there are the general cliche things of like, I don't want you to give up and I believe in you. I do, like that's true. But yeah, I think Yeah, none of these books existed until I was 38. So I spent a lot of that time before that feeling like a failure and feeling like I hadn't accomplished what I was supposed to do and feeling behind. But my piece of advice is like there's really no timetable, and sometimes it takes a really long time and sometimes things happen very quickly, but I think especially for women and especially for parents and mothers in particular, like we just have a different path, and I think we can really get there, but I think it's important not to internalize those voices of like, oh, you failed, or you haven't done it yet, or like, why haven't you published something, because so many great things happen later in life. That's my advice.
That's good. That's very good. Mine is just get used to failure.
That's also true.
And waiting.
Yeah, you have to have, one of my friends, I think it was like I've had 4 agents, which is like hilarious. And we've all had lots of rejection, and I had, like, not why is this supposedly my debut novel, but I had a whole other debut novel that went all over town and like was just rejected everywhere. And my friend said, one thing that's true about you is you're really good at rejection.
It is a skill.
It is,
Yeah.
like just getting hit in the teeth a lot, but just being like, I'm still here.
Yep, I'm still here, I'm getting back up.
So I agree.
Yeah, that's good. That's great. Any other last questions?
Another question.
Yeah.
So you were talking about teaching, so what do you teach, and how does that part like play in with your writing career?
Yeah, I teach at NYU. I am a clinical professor, so I am not tenured, but I'm not adjunct, but in the middle. I always talk about this because I think it's a huge part of labor in this country right now. But so I have long-term contracts, and I've been in my program for like 21 years. And we're actually about to have a union, which I'm really excited for.
And what is the program called?
Oh, it's called Global Liberal Studies, and
was it called something else
It used
before?
to be, long ago when I started, it was the General Studies program, and we were just a 2-year core, and then we evolved into Global Liberal Studies, and we are all still a 2-year core for most of our students, like probably 1,600 of our students go through us and then go to another part of NYU, and then we have a major now, which has been really fun to make that major. But I mostly teach writing. I teach essay writing, I teach novel writing, some kind of hybrid creative writing classes, and then this last year I taught classes for our juniors, which were all like experiential learning classes, although we couldn't go to a lot of places. But I have one class that I really have loved, which is new, called City as Text, and we just kind of use the city as kind of a case study. And I sort of queered it, so we went to Stonewall and studied Stonewall, and then we did things in Harlem, and
That's cool.
so, but those are like mostly writing, and then some weird other courses that I cook up and get allowed to teach.
How do you manage your teaching schedule and your writing? Are you able to write during the school year? I teach typically on 2 days, and then I have like a third day, usually that's like meetings and conferences. So I have a really nice schedule for writing, but there's always like October and November and March and April, I don't do a lot of writing because I just am so in the projects of my students, and it's just very hard for me to focus on anything else. So that used to really stress me out, but I've kind of just accepted that as my reality. And I don't write every day, and when I write, I kind of just write for an hour, but it's a very concentrated hour, like I set a timer, and it's focus-free writing, but I really just kind of go. But I don't do long writing days. I just can't do them anymore. Unless sometimes with revision, I'll do like a really long Yeah,
day.
I feel like with revision I could do many hours,
Yeah.
but drafting, I really hate drafting.
You
I just
do,
bang it
yeah.
out Like,
I love making the first draft, and
something.
I hate revision, but,
really?
I mean, I'm getting better
The
at it.
opposite, okay.
But I find the first draft is just like a dreamy.
Ugh.
I mean, sometimes I
miserable,
get stuck and it's
miserable.
horrible, but
I like to just have words on the paper. They can be terrible words, and they
it's
are.
true.
but-
It's true that once you get those shitty first drafts.
Yeah.
For the book I'm working on now is the first time I really made myself go the whole way through, and I didn't look back, and I didn't fix anything, and that was a really good thing for me because I think that explains a lot of the second novels just getting
Yes.
stuck because I look back and just
I know.
become obsessed and
Yep.
this is so terrible and I can't fix it and
Yeah, I think that's so smart. Going forward, keeping that momentum is very smart, because I have done the same thing. I have a couple of novel ideas in the mix right now, and one of them I've started 6 times. And I keep changing the perspective, and then I go back, and I had to put it aside and do something else.
it is really hard to figure out like all those like point of view things and the first 50 pages are actually kind of torture
Yeah.
figuring that out.
Yeah.
But then I feel like
Mm,
once
yeah.
you decide that you can
Yeah.
kind of get into the rhythm.
Yeah.
Is that true for everyone here? I mean, I'm curious to know what people think here. I know we can resist all.
Almost.
Yeah, it's resonating with me because I'm completely stuck on my second novel. I'm like 20 pages in and I keep changing the narrative voice and perspective and I'm doubting which direction to go next. But it's a crazy story, so I think just hearing you say just going might be
Yeah, just get it
the
all
thing to
down,
do.
and then go back.
I think it that Jane Smiley book. Have you? It's a craft book. I can't remember the title, but and I've only read it at a friend's house. I don't even own it, but I dipped into it quite a bit. And she says to remember that no matter what choice you make, it'll be okay. Like you'll have made a choice.
Okay.
And
About anything?
yeah,
Okay.
about and I mean it's not totally true. Like it's kind of a lie that you have to tell yourself because I think we've all like been backed into terrible corners with characters and plot things. But I did find that liberating. Like okay, you just decide something and
Yeah, you can undecided it later.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you're the god of the book,
Yeah, that's right. Goddess.
goddess of the book. Yeah.
That's right. Well, we'll end there. Goddess of the book. Thank you so much, Carly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Really lovely.
Oh, it's great to have you and everyone. Unfortunately, we don't have copies of him. Oh, I had
It's
it.
hard.
Panpocalypse.
Tongue twister.
I know,
Panpocalypse.
but
I'm
she
gonna-
does have a couple copies of these other books, which are wonderful, and you can order this directly from Feminist Press. And I'm saying this for the YouTube also. This month, Pride Month, it's all their books are 30% off.
30% off, and it's also at Bookshop
Yeah.
and the place that
I should
shall
say.
not be named.
Yeah, I just said it. Never mind. We can say Barnes and Noble now, though. That's
Yeah.
got like a new reputation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's totally at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to announce that next week, Friday, June 17th at 1, another dear friend of mine, Fred Swanson, who is the former executive director of Seattle's Gay City, will join us via Zoom. And he's going to talk about his
Okay, City.
20-plus years of running an LGBTQ plus center. So it should be really...
That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, and he's a very charismatic, funny guy, so it'll be good. But thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Wrap it up. Thank you for the Zoom people.